Welcome back. February 25th, 2021. Culture camp. It's a word we've used before, and I think we need to start familiarizing ourselves with it again. Using a basic definition, Wikipedia works, it's a German term referring to the conflict between the German imperial government and the Roman Catholic Church from the late 19th century, predominantly over the control of educational and ecclesiastical appointments. In contemporary socio-political discussion, the term culture camp is often used to describe any conflict between secular and religious authorities or deeply opposing values, beliefs between sizable factions within a nation, community, other groups. My favorite use of the word is its deployment by the recently departed Antonin Scalia in a famous dissent in a court case out of Colorado relating to civil and gay rights. He wrote, "The court has mistaken a culture camp for a fit of spite." Culture wars, that's what we're talking about. You've heard me often quote Daniel Patrick Moynihan that culture is more important than politics. And you know Andrew Breitbart has a line about politics being downstream from culture. So we ignore it at our peril or blindsiding, and then it comes over us like a tsunami, and too many are caught unawares or unprepared. Not us, not we cultural conservatives who have known the Moynihan and Breitbart central truths and have been in these trenches a long time. One might even call them social issues. Look around just the last few days. Ryan Anderson, a conservative scholar, had his book on children and transgender issues taken off sale from Amazon. Oh, it's hosted a lot of conservatives. And it's even allowing you to buy Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler and Racialist Crud from Ibrahim Kendi. All that's fine on Amazon. You can even get the sayings of Chairman Mao Zedong, death count millions. You just can't get Ryan Anderson dissenting on children making transgender decisions for themselves. You look at Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York. He's more than credibly accused of sexual harassment, as he is also being investigated by the U.S. Department of Justice. And ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, and NBC gave it zero coverage yesterday. Zero. Brett Kavanaugh was uncredibly accused by someone he never even met, and CNN put Michael Avenatti on television 122 times to discuss it. Avenatti's now in jail. We can be told and lectured to ad nauseum that conservatives or Donald Trump are engaged in a war against the media, violating constitutional norms. Our threats constitute threats to civil liberties. And all the left has to do is just ignore the plank in their own eye as they declaim against the occasional specks in ours. The left and the media could care less about racism, sexism, sexual harassment, women's rights, you name it. And because they are so willing to politicize these human failings and societal ills, they're actually the true racists, sexists, harassers, and violators. Why? Because they don't actually care about those things as bads or ills or evils in themselves. They only care when the perpetrators are of one political party, giving a pass to those who may engage in it from their political party. They put politics in front of as more important than racism and all the other things like sexual harassment. Else, you'd have another story of the year, Andrew Cuomo, just as you would have had Joe Biden and Tara Reade last year, or Democratic Governor of Virginia Ralph Northam being seen in blackface or a KKK costume. We still don't know which because he's conveniently forgotten. But we knew it was one of the two. We would have had that story 2 years ago. Were Governor Ducey or Governor DeSantis or some other Republican, they'd be gone by now. To a Democrat or a liberal, it's a non-issue. Why? Again, because politics is more important than racism, sexism, and the parade of horribles we are lectured about when committed by the right. This selective prosecution is a terrible thing, a horrible thing, and it diminishes the toxicity of all those things like racism and sexual harassment, making it secondary or tertiary to political victory, political power. The left and the Democrats have thus vitiated a once serious set of important things, violations of civil rights, as they've diminished and attenuated other things we used to think toxic, like Nazism, like fascism. Good work, that. Actually horrible work, but you take my sarcasm in stride, I hope. If there's one thing I am most mad at the left about, it's just that, weakening, watering down, and diminishing the hateful toxicity of Hitlerism, Nazism, and racism, and the whole range of eugenics we thought ended at Nuremberg, but has now been revived and taught, promulgated as not so bad. Well, it is bad. It's the worst, and we have a nominee right now to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services who will not denounce abortion of children with Down syndrome. In a better day, that'd be front-page news. In a better day, the name Lindsey Boylan would be better known than Christine Blasey Ford. But the accused is a Democrat in the case of the former. Which takes me to Smith College, the elite of the elite. Has some very well-known graduates, including Gloria Steinem and Nancy Reagan and Barbara Bush and Julia Child and Sally Quinn and obviously others. The New York Times today reports on this there. In the midsummer of 2018, Owumu Kanuti, a black student at Smith College, recounted a distressing American tale. She was eating lunch in a dorm lounge when a janitor and a campus police officer walked over and asked her what she was doing there. The officer, who could have been carrying a lethal weapon, left her near meltdown, Ms. Canute wrote on Facebook, saying that this encounter continued a year-long pattern of harassment at Smith College. All I did was be black, Ms. Canute wrote. It's outrageous that some people question my being at Smith College and my existence overall as a woman of color. The college's president, Kathleen McCartney, offered profuse apologies and put the janitor on leave. This painful incident reminds us of the ongoing legacy of racism and bias, the president wrote, in which people of color are targeted while simply going about the business of their ordinary lives. New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, they all picked up the story of a young female student at Smith harassed by white workers. The American Civil Liberties Union took the student's case and said she was profiled for eating while black. Less attention was paid 3 months later when a law firm hired by Smith College to investigate the episode found no evidence of bias. Miss Canute was determined to have eaten in a deserted dorm that had been closed for the summer. The janitor had been encouraged to notify security if he saw unauthorized people there. The officer, like all campus police, was not carrying a lethal weapon. He was unarmed. Smith College officials emphasized reconciliation and healing after the incident. In the months to come, they announced a raft of anti-bias training for all staff, a revamped and more sensitive campus police force, and the creation of dormitories, as demanded by Ms. Canute and her ACLU lawyer, set aside for black students and other students of color. But no offer of apology or amends to the workers whose lives were gravely disrupted by the student's accusation ever came. That was not part of the reconciliation and healing. In other words, the reconciliation and healing was all about doing a series of things, including new dormitories, over an event that didn't happen. The truth is, student workers were not supposed to use the Tyler cafeteria, which was reserved for a summer camp program for young children. Jackie Blair, a veteran cafeteria employee, mentioned that to Mrs. Canute when she saw her getting lunch there, but then she just decided to drop it. Staff members danced carefully around rule enforcement for fear students will lodge complaints against the staff. We used to joke, don't let a rich student report you, because if you do, you're gone, said a janitor. Miss Canute ignored the rule in place. A janitor who was in his 60s and poor of sight was emptying garbage cans when he noticed that she was in that closed lounge. All involved with the summer camp were required to have state background checks, and campus police have advised staff it was wisest to call security rather than confront strangers on their own if they saw unauthorized people there. The janitor, who worked at Smith for 35 years, dialed security. We have a person sitting there laying down in the living room, the janitor told the dispatcher, according to the transcript. I didn't approach her or anything, but seems out of place. The janitor had noticed Mrs. Canute's skin color but made no mention of it to the dispatcher. Miss Canute was in the shadows. He was not sure, the janitor, if he was looking at a man or a woman, so Miss Canute later accused the janitor of misgendering her as well. On and on this went. Janitors who were making $11 an hour were ruined by a privileged student putting up $78,000 a year to attend Smith and disregard the rules everyone else had to abide by. Turns out there's a lot of Nick Sandmans in our world and a lot of privilege. It just isn't always white. But when invoked, can ruin good, hard-working non-racists who are just trying to do their job. This is what happens when you make a fascination and scruples of color and privilege. And who will stand up for this inequality? Do we even care about it? We should. I'm Seth. We'll be right back.